Welcome to the backstory. Before we get started, take a quick second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It helps us continue sharing real stories from across the industry and give a voice to the people behind them. Today, we're sitting down with Monika Carmichael, General Manager and Dealer Principal of Trent Valley Honda. Her father came to Canada as a young refugee, arriving with no money, no English, and a determination to build a life from nothing. That journey led to the creation of one of the first Honda dealerships in the country. Monika stepped into the business at a young age and began finding her own footing. What she's built since goes far beyond the dealership itself. In this episode, we talk about how life's hardest moments can shape the kind of leader that you become. Welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm very excited to get into your backstory. And where I'd like to start, if we can go back to the beginning, very recently, it was your father's 8-year anniversary since his passing, and I know he had quite an impact on your life and where you are today. So if you can tell us a little bit about your dad and how he came to Canada, and we can go from there.
Absolutely. So my father grew up in the communist Yugoslavia at the time, which is now known as Slovenia. We call it the Canadian dream, or he did. And as I get older, I really realize how incredible and inspiring that story was as I've raised my own daughter. And so at 18, when he basically escaped to live his dream, or at least chase it, and got caught in a Sound of Music escape over the mountains. Like, who could picture that, right? And then was given a refugee status to either come to Canada or Australia, and chose Canada. You know, that was the beginning. But I can't imagine, you know, myself at 18, or even my daughter now that she's just reached that age, and what it took, what bravery, what courage. He was always a risk taker. He wasn't afraid to fail, to try. And I think that really throughout my career inspired me to take chances as a woman in a non-traditional business. You know, it gave me the courage to do things.
So he came on his own, all by himself at that age, 18.
And his family never followed, so he was the only one. And as the story goes later on in his semi-retirement, when he chose to leave the car business here, he chose to go home, which he still called home, and take care of his family that was left there and give back to the village that he left.
So that's obviously a very difficult thing to do. Number one, make the decision to actually leave and act on that decision is 100% very brave.
Yeah.
But then it's a different reality. Sometimes it hits you. That decision hits you.
Right.
Once you follow through.
There's no turning back.
So
really.
He gets here and he doesn't know anybody. What happens from there?
Couldn't speak English, so German was his second language. Had his trade, you know, had one suitcase, not a lot of money, you know, and just basically his determination, really. So he landed in Winnipeg, actually, and started working at a Mercedes dealership because the German language allowed him to communicate to some of the people who worked there. And they quickly realized his skill as a technician on all the European cars because that's what he was trained on. And so that's where it started. And so he built his own reputation, and through different relationships, through Mercedes actually, and that German kind of culture, he ended up in Kitchener, where he met my mother. And that love story began, which was a lifelong love story till the day he passed. And she was an immigrant too from Austria. So very aligned in their cultures and beliefs. In the mid-70s, Honda came knocking and was new to Canada, this Japanese brand that no one knew about. They went to dealers who were already in business, and he was working at the Datsun store actually at that time. And he partnered with the Datsun dealer and his brother and put everything on the line to basically take on the Honda franchise, which again was unknown and a huge risk, right? So that's kind of how the door was opened.
Okay, so at this point in his life, are you born yet? Are you what's happening on the personal side? Is there kids involved?
Yeah, so met my mom when he was 20. By 22, I was born. My brother came 18 months after me. Yeah, we were raised in Peterborough.
Do you have memories of when you were younger? Was dad around a lot, or he's building the business? What are your memories around that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember some real fun things, like the cool cars that showed up in the driveway and the road trips. My dad was a road tripper. He was a driver. He didn't take holidays, but he loved to go on a weekend drive, you know, and all the family in there and listening to Lionel Richie with my dad. And, you know, those are the kind of neat memories, and going to the shop with him and being around cars. But honestly, we did not see him much. He was very much a workaholic in those years. He was so committed to his dream, and we would see him, you know, come home at 8 when we were going to bed. You know, when we got into sports and so on, like, he just didn't have the opportunity to come and watch often, but when he did, it was such an incredible moment, right? Because we knew how committed he was. So it really exposed me to that work ethic and that drive and that belief and commitment to a dream. I can't not talk about my mom, because she quickly gave up her passion. She was a musician. She was a music teacher. That was her passion in life. And quickly, as he got into the business, she gave up her studio and her teaching clients to work in the business with him to help him build. I feel, as I reflect now, that I'm a real neat mix of both my dad, who was very tough and determined, and my mom, who was very practical, a little softer, and added that real nice dimension as a team working in the business. Yeah, I have to give her some credit. She is one of my mentors as well.
Yeah. And that's often how it happens, I feel like, in relationships and partnerships. You don't often get two of the same personalities, right? Or they clash. So her having that softer side and being logical, I'm sure he leaned a lot on that as well, right? And so it made for that good partnership and dynamic between them.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that, you know, you grow up and you don't know who you become later on,
right?
But all of those influences are happening as you're going through the years, and you don't realize it until you're like, have I become my mother or father?
Little pieces of both, which makes it special. And then you know, find your own identity and that meld, though. But it is special. It's unique, and it's really a privilege to get to a spot in your life where you can really own that and appreciate it so much more.
Exactly. So now, as you're, you know, getting older into the teenage years, you know, when you really start going, what am I going to do with my life? And everyone starts asking you, what's going through your mind during those years? Like, did you know you were going to become a part of the business, or did you have completely different passions?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a cool story. I mean, you know, very strict European household. So at 12 years old, get out and work. Like, there's no summers playing hockey. And, you know, I did find a passion in swimming. So I was a competitive swimmer, which really helped me gain confidence through my teenage years, trying to find your world and confidence and all the things. That really allowed me a path where I could put myself out there, and I eventually captained the Western swim team when I went to university. So it really gave me that competitiveness, which I have in me. You don't want to play a game against me, especially when I lose.
Did you find the friends around you? Did you feel different even then, being very competitive? And
Oh yeah. Like, for sure. Like, you know, you surround yourself, or you attract people that have common things and that lift you, or at least that's what, you don't know that when you're 12, 13, 15, right? But that's what happens, right? Like-mindedness and commonalities. And of course, you spend so much time training with teammates, those become your friends. But regards to the business, we had to work early. So, I mean, us talk about being exposed from, you know, at 12, okay, you're going to be the janitorial team, you and your brother, sorry. Like, this is how you start, and you're going to clean this and the toilet, you know, you name it. Like, this is how it starts. Like, you got to start somewhere. And then I always went and got other jobs because, you know, I wanted to have exposure elsewhere. It's like, I'm not working for my family business. Like, I'm going to make my own way. So between the sporting industry and, of course, cars, I knew was my passion too. I always kind of felt a pull. The business part of it, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So when I went to university, it was very clear that I was going to go get my business degree, but I didn't quite know where. I was a numbers person. I was super competitive. So I knew it had to be something that allowed me to measure and gain insight into how I could get ahead. I'm a bit of a progress junkie. Like, I need to see progress, movement. And my dad was a builder. And now that I reflect, it's like, you know what? Potential is my drug. I tell people that when I interview people, because I'm looking for that initiative and that seed and that ability that I can help grow. And my biggest reward is seeing people succeed. That's just what drives me. So I knew from a young age I was going to be in business, but I didn't know what. So I can tell you the story of how we all fall into the car business. I think you so talked in previous podcasts about it, but do we plan to be in the car business? Not a lot of people.
Really, yeah.
But somehow fate draws us. And then when we get a taste, it's so unique and dynamic. For me, a challenge, which was always part of my spirit. You know, when I was a woman in the car business, male dominated, like I wanted to take on the challenge. I mean, it was very difficult at times, but it intrigued me, and it really drove me.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because so now you start to get more into the family business.
Well, I'll tell you how that happened.
Yeah.
Because I was actually in the sporting goods business, so I mentioned. So I had a great opportunity with Rawlings, and they were setting up the Canadian division, and I was hired as their second employee right out of Ivy Biz School at Western. And I was hired as a marketing assistant right out of school, and we had to set up the whole company. Like what? Like I spent 2 years doing case methods and problem solving, being thrown into these ideal or theoretical things. So I was the whiz kid, coming out of school, second generation. So it was very interesting to work in that dynamic. And he was always like, why aren't you working for your dad? And I'm like, not a chance. Like I'm in Toronto and I'm living in Mississauga. And I got my own and I'm going to prove myself. As a young lady, still in those days, it's like you wanted to prove yourself. I mean, it was just the challenge that I saw. So anyways, as the long story short, my dad unfortunately got very sick. He had invested in the Acura store. So we had the Honda store and the Acura store at the time in Peterborough. And I had put all I had as life savings into the Acura store as a little investment, because he always gave us opportunity. He never pushed us, but he always said, hey, I'm doing this. You want to be a part? Here's what it's going to cost. There was nothing for free with him.
Yeah.
And that taught us a lot, obviously, over the years. And the manager that he had hired to run the store got terminally ill. So my poor mother, when everything was, two businesses, and she just said, you're a part owner. Like, I need your help. Doesn't have to be forever, but I really need your help. And so that was my fate story. That's how I kind of fell back in and was given the biggest case method of my university career at a school. Was here's a dealership that was not doing great. The metrics were all underperforming, and here's your thing. You got marketing, you got service, you got talk about learning every role in the place, from putting in the warranty claims to setting up the showroom to hiring technicians, to buying the tools. Like it was, probably a 5 to 8 person operation at that point. And you had to go do what you had to do, like figure it out, right? But boy, did it give me the bug and the opportunity and the real insight into, wow, like this is a dynamic business with so many different aspects and challenges and opportunities.
So much, has happened between then and now. So, for the people that are watching and listening to this journey, we all know that accomplishments like what you've achieved to date don't come easy. There's so many challenges along the way. And I'm a big believer in, you can't control other people, how they behave, what they decide, but you can control you.
Right.
So I'm sure you've gone through a lot of growth during that time. If you think back even to the beginning, like when you were really gung-ho, like you're going to make this work, what did you lean on? Who did you lean on to figure things out on the way?
That's a great question. There certainly wasn't a lot of women in the business. So when I look back now, like people call, oh, you're such a trailblazer. Not that I knew, really labeled it then, but there wasn't women that I could go to. So I had to find people that I relied on, that I could build relations with and trust with. I had some early relationships with Honda executives, partners in the business that basically saw something in me. I would never miss a meeting. I would never miss an opportunity to be at, a social outing or a dinner or something. Even if it was in Toronto, I would drive, why is this girl from Peterborough? But it was just my opportunity to be present. And it was all guys. There was never another lady. Ever. Like I was in dealer meetings with 200 guys.
So did they know your dad?
Some of them knew my dad, 100%. Okay. He had taken me to the odd dealer meeting. He was so great that way. So I did have people that had been there for a long time who kind of took me under their wings, which I appreciated, because there was decisions over the years when things got tough and challenges came, supply chain and all sorts of things that have happened over the last 34 years. And they would say, Monika, this is what I think you should do, right? And so I could always rely on them. And then I quickly built the relationships of other people in my position in sales management in the 90s. I have a great brotherhood. They are truly like brothers to me, and they are still some of my best friends in the industry, right? Like if things are happening and I want perspective, that's what's really gotten me through.
And that's because of the relationships that you were able to build.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Well, I think there's the business challenges, and then there's the personal challenges along the way, right? So I remember a moment of time, I was 30, And my dad sat me down and he said, you know, this business really isn't for women. If you want to be a mom and you want to keep going and, you know, buy this business, because it wasn't going to be given, he said, you can't do it. You can't do both. And you don't tell me I can't do so. I remember that actually it goes back, but you know, at university, I made it to business school. I was captain of the swim team. I had, you know, I wanted to have a social life. Like that's what university is about. And I remember the dean calling me in after the first semester and saying, Monika, 3 things. You got to pick 2. You cannot be good at all 3. Same thing. I just went, so don't tell me.
Yeah.
Anyways, of course, I always took the messaging and, you know, made it into a warning or some type of a support message for me to be careful and to be wary and to kind of reset my goals and not overextend. But at the same time, it's like, oh no, that only made me more driven to do what maybe not a lot of women had done before, right?
Right.
And so...
Did you have moments of doubt once
100%.
you got into it?
Oh, in the early days when you're in that kind of prove yourself leadership moments, yeah, your imposter syndrome, you're at the meetings, you know, and you know, in those days it was about being present, it was about learning, it was about being open to what you were hearing, and making sure that you were... taking that back and using it to kind of build on your knowledge base and applying it and sharing it. And on the personal side, yeah, I was married fairly early in my, you know, mid-20s, and I was a workaholic. And 5 years later, I was divorced. Like I was not at home.
So, and you think it's because you just weren't?
I just wasn't there, right? And so, you know, live and learn. I mean, there's 2 sides to every story, but that was a hard lesson, right? And I watched my parents be married their whole lives from 20. And so that hurt. That was a failure. That was like, what are you doing? Like a big, again, a reflection moment to say, what are you going to do different? What did you learn? Which I think our failures teach us, right? I mean, it's not all about the accomplishments. It's about the failures and how we stand up and have the courage to move on and what we learn and apply and get better with knowing those learnings now, right? So that was a big one.
So in that time, I mean, and unfortunately, it happens a lot in our industry because of the hours, because of, I think there's a lot of people in our industry that have that same sort of, you know, ambition and it is very challenging to keep everything afloat at the same time. You can't be in 2 places at once, right? How did you go through the divorce and still, I guess, continue to work so hard and to, you know, just keep your focus?
Yeah, it was a tough time. I mean, I feel like in that moment, I was established enough. I was confident enough that I could be independent. And for me, my work was kind of where I found my salvage and fulfillment and validation. So it didn't really make me work less at that moment because that's what I had and what I felt was moving in the right direction, right? And so, you know, but you had to reflect, surround yourself, you know, with the people, the family, the girlfriends that kind of help pick you up and kind of reestablish. And I knew I wanted to have a family. So it was like, you know, but I was still young. So yeah, I just kind of pushed the reset button.
So you doubled down on the work aspect, building
in my 30s.
Yeah, in your 30s, building the business, building yourself, going through all of that. But inside you knew that you wanted to become a mother. So how old are you at this point, I guess, when you find your partner and where you decide you want to build a family?
So 2000, I guess, was the year. He was an older man and, you know, not in the car business, came actually from policing and had a marriage and had 2 teenage children.
Okay.
So that was interesting, right? I called him my dream maker because by 2005, that was the year I bought my dad out.
Wow.
And the same month, I became pregnant.
Wow, that was a big month.
I still get goosebumps.
Wow.
It was a big
how
moment
it all
in time.
Comes together.
Big moment in time. Yeah, for sure.
Wow. I mean, the business side is really cool, but being pregnant, what do you remember about that time? Were you just like completely elated?
For sure. And there's a long backstory to it, but he unfortunately had been diagnosed with cancer by that time. And
your partner?
Yeah. So she was a miracle and she was a true gift because we knew he was not going to be there to raise her. So it was,
and so you knew that. So your whole pregnancy, you had that thought.
I did.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, first of all, because you know, we talk about careers, we talk about, we have so many people so ambitious, but the personal side is often what gives us the most challenges.
For sure.
And it's usually the people, you know, closest to us. So going through that, where it's such a the polarity there is like, of you're on the moon about,
I know,
you're having a child, like this is the happiest moment, you know,
For
time
sure.
in your life. And then knowing, you know, what's around the corner. I don't want to, you know, take you back to that
No, of
moment.
course.
How did you rebuild yourself?
She became my guiding light. So blessed to have a daughter. I mean, he passed, unfortunately, when she was 3 months old. I was back at work by 6 months because you're the owner. You're the, you know, I was GM at the time, and I just made it work. I, you know, had a beautiful young lady come into my life that helped me during the daytime. And I just, again, recommitted with that new drive, that new why that really kept me going through a challenging time.
And your ability, as I'm seeing a pattern here, your ability to just defy the odds no matter what, big or small challenge, you're just like, I'm Monika and I'm going to figure this out. Who do I need? What do I need? And you get into like I have to take action.
Yeah.
And then you dive right into it. And I'm sure it took a very long time, you know, even till now, I'm sure it's,
For
you know,
sure.
it hits a nerve.
For sure.
Now looking at the women and the men, right, coming up in our industry,
Yes.
knowing they're probably going to face very similar things in their life, where, you know, parents and family and so many things going on. But as women, I find it's particularly more challenging at certain times in our lives, especially when you start to talk about kids and ambition. It's almost like, how do you do both? Looking back, do you recommend other women take that same path? Do you have any regrets, any advice for those that are?
For sure. I mean, I think if you know you're passionate about something, I don't think you have to give it up when you become a mom. I think it can look differently. I think you can reprioritize things, but as women, we have to fuel our passions, and mine was my business. For young women that are coming up, you know, if I have to give myself advice to that young 20-something Monika, it would be, you know, there's never going to be a perfect time to step forward, to have the courage. You don't just get to a place and then say, okay, I'm ready to, you know, make my mark. Like, you have to take those steps early and often, and you have to put yourself at the table, and you have to get over the fear, and you have to believe that your voice is worth something, and the perspective that you can give and that you can gain by putting yourself in those moments is what's going to allow you to grow. And to be a mom and to be a business owner, in my case, is doable. You need a village. You need people that are behind you. You need support. And you do need to set the boundaries to keep yourself in a healthy mindset.
Well, can I ask you something?
For sure.
Personally, for me, because
Yes.
I struggle very much with this challenge.
Yeah.
As a business owner, as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, as a friend, all these different hats. I have to be sometimes a different person to tackle different things in my life. And I find it difficult to be the soft nurturer at the same time, like within a day, you know, a day's time, like, and still be the owner of my business and still have that drive and ambition to, like, you know, to do what I need to do. And then switch hats immediately. You know, it doesn't always happen very naturally. Did you struggle with that? It's just, you know.
I think as females, we do. Like, there's just so much expectation in the world in so many different ways. And this generation, I mean, our mothers and, you know, the mothers that came before them, they didn't have that expectation to work and run businesses. It just wasn't in the, you know, in reality. And so, yes, it's okay. You're not alone in that way. And I think it's practice, and it's giving yourself grace in those moments, and learning and acknowledging when maybe you didn't transition like the way that you wanted to. The more you practice, the better you get at it. It does become more natural as you go. We have to lead, and that requires a different side of us, right? It's just having so many talents. And that's the way I spin it. It's just like, wow, like, I'm building the muscle of leadership and strength and being direct and, all those things, as well as being soft and nurturing in the moments that I need to be. And that is well-roundedness. So good for you. You're a strong, able, talented woman, right? And you have to believe that that's all part of it.
And with leadership, what I perceived as leadership, I guess coming up, I worked at a dealership myself, and it looked a little bit, it actually looked very different than how I lead today.
Yes.
And I've had the opportunity to be around different people such as yourself and many other women and men. And I've observed a lot. That's part of what I do is I'm like, I just be quiet and just observe and listen.
Yep.
And I've kind of said, oh, I like this. I like how this person does this. And I've formed my own. But with respect to you, you're running the business. When it comes to leadership and your particular style, from where you started to where you are today, how would you describe your philosophy around that?
Yeah, and it's evolved for sure. And I think I even had that aha moment just kind of preparing and reflecting about today. My dad, I watched him lead, and as a man, the expectation was you need to be tough and you need to be, harsh sometimes, and you need to be direct, and it was almost like management by fear at times, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't handle that. Like I knew that him and I could not work together in the same leadership way because of our differences in that way. But that was the way that worked back then, and that was okay for men. As a woman, though, that was not okay back then. Absolutely not.
Perceived very differently.
So just like yourself, I was an observer. I took it all in. I knew how things made me feel. I knew how I wanted to make people feel. We had that emotional intelligence. We had that ability to nurture. And so when I go back to your question is how do I lead? I'm a very core values driven, culture driven, servant type of leader. I feel like my role, and through all my career, early it was like prove yourself, Monika, leadership, do everything. Be a role model, show them how you want it to be done, be involved in everything so that you can really kind of, make sure that everybody gets your core values, which my dad was very strong on too. But your spin and the softness that you bring and the culture and recognition culture versus, that kind of angry culture, right? Fear-based culture.
Right.
And so now it's much more intentional. I've really realized that I can lead with authenticity. I can be a woman. I can take the strengths that I have, and I don't have to lead like he did or like I see other maybe strong dealers lead. I just have to lead effectively in my own way. And now I'm realizing, wow, that's created such a unique culture in your store, and it's such a different message and experience that it actually makes you powerful and makes your environment stronger and unique in a way that differentiates yourself from other dealerships. That willingness to really invest and develop people, that's what drives me.
And I see that in how much you care, not just about your staff, your team. I know that your dealership yourself, you're part of a lot of different causes, and I see that on your website, on your social media, and it's not just one or two. You did 52, 52 causes that you were that
Last
you donated
year.
to. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because I believe your father was also a big advocate in donating time.
Yep. Yeah, he taught me that. He was always involved in the community in things that he was passionate about, like lacrosse and, hockey and some of the sports. Yeah, last year as we celebrated our 50th year and the legacy in our community, I wanted to do something that really captured that core value base, which is community mindedness, the belief that you have to give back to your community to be part of the fabric. So I've always been passionately involved in the causes that I pick, which is what's made it so much fun and given me balance, actually. Met a lot of interesting people that do such amazing work. It just became the real stamp on an amazing 50th year full of celebrations and reflection. Been a big part of my team's legacy too, like the belief in the ability and opportunity for them to get involved, I think is so important.
Yeah.
Because then they live that way in their own lives because of the opportunities that I've been able to give them to be part of these things, right? they become volunteers, and then your community thrives, and that's what keeps the world going around.
Yeah.
So the circle of life, the circle of business, you know, we called them the 3 triangles in my dad's day, right? Take care of your people, your team, most important thing, your people. Take care of your customers. Obviously, that's what builds your business, keeps it successful, and that community piece. And if you do all this, success will come. He was never about the money and the bottom line. Like, he just knew that if he did well in those 3 things, that it would come. And so we've kept that philosophy since he started it.
So looking to the future now, what do the next few years look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, when you turn 50 as a business and as a person, you know, you do a lot of reflecting, you do a lot of soul searching, you do a lot of, you know, what does the future look like? What do we want it to be? So my eyes sparkle when I start talking, because we've got the next chapter of Trent Valley Honda that's being created right now. Not only are we investing in our facility and the structure of our building and the modernization of it to be able to serve our clients and motivate our team and inspire them in ways as we look forward, but we're also really rebuilding how we operate within that building. My vision is, you know, really stepping into a mentorship and development position where I'm building the leadership team around me to be stronger and to outperform me, of course, and take the business into the next chapter. It quickly dawned at me, actually, after the 50-year reflection exercises, that our core values are such a big differentiator for us as a dealership, in my opinion, that we have to define them in a clear way. We have to set expectations around them and what that means in each role. And we have to measure them just as importantly as we do the metrics. So we've just launched a new curriculum for people that join us, a new curriculum for leaderships that are in this development program with me. And we're really changing the language that we use every day. And our team huddles are all around those core value pieces and acknowledging those who are living to them, and also pointing out maybe opportunities of how we can live them in a stronger way to make an impact. And yeah, so it's really kind of neat going,
Exciting.
wow, like I always knew it was important, but how do I measure it and tell the rest of my team and the people to come in my business? Because I want that legacy to live. So we got lots going on, and I'm excited and passionate and still going strong.
That's incredible. Your journey, your challenges, everything you've accomplished, but that you're still so excited about that next chapter, and there's still lots left to do. So
absolutely,
congratulations on all of your achievements, and we wish you all the very best in the next chapter.
Thank you so much, Jesse.